Welcome everybody to our May meeting. We have apologies from Christy, Stacey, Tiana and Holly. So unfortunately our team's very light today. But I do have some extra people I'd like to introduce you to. So we have a new records member full-time now, which is Katrina. She's based out at Kilkeven. And she's come in today to sit in on the meeting and to see what we do and interact with other members. And we also have Jessica and Hayley, who at the moment are doing a project for us with our old building and plumbing files, and they are currently doing a major 12-month project, hoping to have them boxed and sent off site for storage. So we can chat about that as well. We don't have a lot on the agenda today. We can talk about our SharePoint and our Teams upgrade that we're moving forward technology-wise. Otherwise, I think we might just have a around the table maybe to kick off today, and hopefully somebody has something they might like to talk about that they didn't place on the agenda.
Just from as the City Council, I have set up an invite to sort of key players in information management, because we're looking at moving on to a new system, but we're still in the information gathering process. So Geraldine Hollyman, I can see she's here, and Stephen Richardson, Keith White. Keith is actually on sick leave. And Chilea was going to dial in, so I'm not sure if she has or hasn't. But we, Jenny and myself, will be quite happy to take any information to these key players. Oh, and then our IT coordinator was also supposed to dial. Oh, Chilea is here. So hi, Chilea. Yes. So Chilea is the director of Finance and Corporate, so she's my boss.
Right.
Hello.
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 Hello, hello everyone.
We've got Kelsey here as well, Sandra.
Sorry?
Kelsey's here as well, if you want to introduce her.
Yeah. Kelsey, I think John might know Kelsey from town planning, so she's dialed in.
Right. Okay. So we've got 3 people from Mount Isa.
Yes.
I know we've got 4 people from Mount Isa. And then Haley, you're from Bundaberg, aren't you?
Yes, correct. I'm from Dundee.
Right. So we've got a very small gathering. A lot of people accepted the meeting, but only a small amount have jumped in. So it may end up being a bit of a short meeting. So.
Okay. Radio. Well, we've been having a lot of transitions at the moment. Going on from our last meeting, we have been evolving, and our role as record keepers is slowly becoming auditing and working with documents that are coming across through authority and getting put into our BCS system. So our roles are changing, and there's a lot of change happening with us as an organisation. We have introduced, we are slowly implementing Teams throughout the organisation. We've been in a trial pilot now for maybe 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. And it's slowly being drip fed out to the rest of the organisation. So we're in a big learning curve at the moment with new systems. SharePoint was also mentioned on our agenda. I personally haven't had much to do with SharePoint, but Teams is very useful. Is anybody else using Teams at this point?
Yes, the whole of Bundaberg Regional Council are on Teams. We
Wonderful.
started back when COVID happened. It was a quick rollout because yeah, we all had to start working from home. So far so
And
good.
how was the transition for you guys, and how are you finding using the program?
It's really good. It was pretty easy, and most of our meetings are all done via Teams nowadays too.
Yeah. So we have it set up so that we can save storing all our information on our P drive. We set up avenues in there where we can amend out. We've got rosters, and you can set up like a catalogue area that you can create to store things and your tips using Magic, or our challenges and our issues that we deal with the end users as well. It's just an area that we're using, so we'll eventually steer away from the P drive and keeping all our information.
Is your P drive a shared network drive, Kim?
Yeah, we have ours. It's secured down, but we're just moving away from that and putting all that smaller information into that Teams, because there's an area there that you can have your meetings as well as keep your documents.
And is it you're sort of using it like we would use like an intranet site?
Yeah. We're finding it easy as well.
So, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt it's a really fantastic collaboration tool, and we've been using it, even just to run these meetings for quite some time now. And we're only a small organisation, so we've been using it for a fair while, but probably not to the extent as larger, more dispersed organisations do. But yeah, just interested to know what people think the record keeping issues are. I mean, it keeps coming up in this space of record keeping. And, we never used to have this discussion about the intranet, did we? About things. We never had the discussion about other places where we put documents, but all of a sudden we've got Teams and Office 365, and it seems to be a big challenge to record keeping. But I haven't really had anyone explain to me what the challenge is, I guess. So
I think there's I do recall Christy mentioning something about retention has been a flag that she has flagged, but I don't think she's had a response to that one yet.
So what does that mean though, retention? I mean, what are you putting in Teams?
Well, it's just they're all working documents that we just use as a team.
Yeah. See, to me, a working document isn't a record.
No.
So once it's a record, that's when I say you should put it in your record keeping system.
Yeah.
So
And we do.
And we used to do that with a shared network drive all the time. We put all our working documents on there on our shared P drive or N drive, and we'd share them amongst each other. And then when they were finally a finished procedure or policy or something like that, we'd put it in the record keeping system. So I'm just wondering where the mindset has changed, that all these works in progress and all these drafts are now records that we have to worry about managing as records. I'm just wondering if someone's spooked everyone and we're not really sure what we're being spooked about. Well, I've got Stephen Richardson joining us.
Stephen is from Mount Isa City Council.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Just on that topic of Teams, using Teams as a document storage, and the P drive, we've got the H drive here that we use, as a working sort of area. And we've also faced with the problem that people like using the H drive more than, as a sort of area to store their documents, but that is not a record keeping space.
No.
Eventually, when that becomes a record, they need to move it onto a record keeping system like Magic, that has the retention and disposal schedule assigned to it. So I'm not sure whether the Teams is sort of be used as a default, so a working platform,
Sorry, I might have misled you. So we don't use it as our record keeping. Our records live in Magic, and we also we've tried to implement the user workspace within Magic for people to use, to edit and create documents as well, and keep it in a safe place because it's safer than keeping it on the drive. But I think with Teams, it's more of a collaboration area for communication and talking, and just, putting some of those other tools in that can be stored in there as well.
So yeah, I totally understood what you were saying, Kim. Yeah, I didn't have the impression that you're using it as a record keeping system. I just wanted to know why we are discussing it in the record keeping space in this area, because what do people perceive as the record keeping implications of Teams and Office 365? Because what Sandra's saying, totally, that's, excuse me, I'm not too well. When things are made a record, that's, when they're finalised, and we don't want them changed, we want them to be evidence at that point. That's when we start managing them as records. So, are we bringing this into this space and discussing it because other people have, without really knowing why we're discussing it?
I'm not sure. This is just on the agenda, so I wasn't sure how this was going to be led. There was just like, Chris, there's just been a comment like record keeping challenges with in these applications. And if anyone else is using them, I suppose, and if they are having challenges, we'd like to hear.
Yeah.
Well, we faced here in Mount Isa City Council with the H drive, getting people away from that. Maybe using that as a working platform, and then, when it becomes a record, transferring that to Magic. But we've also got a working space in Magic where we call it public. It's open to all users. So that can also be used as a working platform. And Jerry uses it a lot. So if she can shed some light in that area, if you want to, Jerry.
The public library in Magic isn't the working folder. It's just to allow different people of our organisation access to documents, such as plumbers and that, who don't need to then log in because they don't have an account to log in per se. They just need to access the view only. But it's not where we hold our working documents. That lives in that network H drive. Or if it's a collaborative sort of spreadsheet specifically, we have it in Teams as well. But for me, that's more of my working files are in my Teams directory more so than on H drive, just because I need to access files wherever I am at that time, or send it to somebody else that doesn't have, say, access to H drive.
And Jerry, when you decide that something needs to be, managed permanently by the records area, or sorry, not permanently, but ongoing from a certain point in time, do you get those into the EDRMS?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
there's folders for which we normally call transferred to Magic. So all that file goes in there and then gets archived out and moved across to, so that there's not multiple files on Teams or there. But my challenge has been more of, we've had a lot of, because it's been going for so long, and as technology evolves, you have multiple versions of files on a network drive, plus lots of people who've left the organization, and those records then get left behind per se, and somebody else has to categorize them or archive them, and it's people who haven't been involved in that project, for example. That's a constant battle, but we just archive when we can.
It's that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So we've just got a new tool that's creating us the same problems as we've always had, basically. like you said, when someone leaves, the big problem is they don't throw their trash out. They leave all their trash behind for someone else to sort through, and probably 95 to 99% of it can just be deleted. And that's the real problem, is that people aren't keeping their records as they go. So we don't have confidence to get rid of things, and people are too busy to check it. So it ends up being kept in a bin forever, just in case there was something important in there. So I don't think, to me, I'm just saying, I just don't think Office 365 and Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, OneDrive, it's just a new tool to do things that we used to do easier, but I don't think there's really any record keeping issues than we used to have with all the other tools that we used to use. The only issue I have is if people think that SharePoint can now replace your EDRMS. That's where I get really concerned.
Yes, there is possible concern for that, but that's not, yeah, I don't have much more to say on that. It's still all new for me as well.
Yeah. So, but I think there's this message getting out there that, you know, SharePoint does record keeping, and I mean it does, but so does a network drive. So you just got to make sure that if you're going to use SharePoint as your record keeping system, that you take those steps to make it compliant. So just as you could with a shared network drive as well. I mean, I think SharePoint's a much better tool than a shared network drive, but yeah.
I've got a question, John Chile here.
Yes.
Just wondering, just building up on your point that SharePoint is not a records management system. We're all in agreement. I guess my question is, how do we make SharePoint improve on our records management systems? How can we make it go that extra mile? Because we all agree that you do need a records management system of some sort, but how do you make SharePoint work for you?
The easy answer to that is purchasing a third-party product to sit on top of SharePoint to do your record keeping for you, or to use as your record keeping system. So there's a few out there that we sort of see around the record keeping areas. There's AvePoint do one. There's a company called RecordPoint. There's another one called CastlePoint. I think I was saying to Sandra, anything with point in the name seems to have built something on top of SharePoint. And they all make claims that they're compliant. I know Alyssa Blackburn, she's from AvePoint, she speaks a lot. And she wants to sell her product, definitely, but she even admits that even with their product, it's very, very difficult to make SharePoint compliant. You might have to sort of bend a few rules, reading between the lines, bend a few rules, make some allowances to say, well, it actually doesn't do everything compliant like we would like to have done in Australia. So, but that's the only way. And they're not necessarily cheap sort of products to put on top of SharePoint. I mean, SharePoint seems to be reasonably priced because you're buying it anyway. And I can't, because we don't use it. You've got to have the E5 tenant licensing or something to get the records module. I'm really not over it, so I can't really speak to it, but I do know that if you want to be compliant, you do have to buy a third-party product to plug into it. So you've got to build that into your costs as well. So in many ways, you end up with just having you've just purchased another EDRMS. It's just that you want your EDRMS to sit on top of SharePoint as a platform. If that makes sense. That sort of answer what you're asking, Chilaya?
Yes, it does. And I guess for us, if I can share a little bit about our journey, we're going through an ERP change. Yep. So at the moment, we'll move from, and Sandra, please jump in and add if you something. So we just moved from DataWorks to Magic. So, and we're going to Authority, but we're having that discussion around what do we do with records as we move to Authority. Do we make the transition or keep Magic and put an Office 365 or SharePoint over it so that yeah, there's two options for us. We just need a bit of clarity, I think, in terms of what's the best way for us.
Right. Yes. Yeah, you know, and it comes down to cost benefit a lot when you look at it. So it's a really, you know, and I know you know this, you've really got to get the costs at the end of the day and go, you know, what sort of bang are you getting for your buck? Because you don't want to end up buying a Rolls Royce system when a Holden Ute would do the job for you. So, yeah, have a look at that. I know, like Record Point, for example, I think is quite an expensive product. Whereas AvPoint is probably the lower range if you want to go to SharePoint. But it'd be good to get some quotes and get some pricing and just see, well, what functionality do they do that you don't already get with Magic. So Authority, sorry, Chile, I haven't had anything to do with Authority for quite a few years. I know we had Authority at the Noosa Shire Council when I was with the Sunshine Coast Council. So it's a Civica product, isn't it? Authority.
Yes, it is. And sorry, John and everyone, I have to dash out into another meeting, but I'll leave you in the capable hands of Sandra and Geraldine. And yeah,
Sure.
Well, Stephen here from Mount Isa. The product we're doing is the Altitude product from Civica, and that's the cloud version of Authority.
Right, and it's called Altitude, is it?
Yeah, they've just rebadged it as Altitude because it's in the cloud.
Yeah, I like it. And
well, they could have named it after one of the cloud types, of course, but potential there for problems.
Sure. And is it so it'll be all SharePoint based, is it? That they've written that on top of SharePoint?
I mean, SharePoint comes as part of the Microsoft. We're going with the Altitude, but we haven't made any decision on really the record side.
Right.
So we're installing it in stages.
And does Civica recommend a record keeping solution?
Well, yeah, they have one that's semi-inbuilt, but it's based on the old trim.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, you know, that's way down the pecking order list. Yep.
Sure. Okay, interesting.
Apologies to any trim users out there.
Most of us are Magic users here, except for Haley. Haley's Objective.
Well, what does Haley use? Objective.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that.
Our Objective also goes in with our Authority, which we have just upgraded to the new one that you said just before. What was it called?
You're from Rockhampton, Haley?
No, Bundaberg Regional Council.
Bundaberg, oh yeah, because I think Bundaberg and can't remember which one we've been talking to someone. Oh, okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So the Objective, is it?
Yep, and it all goes together nicely. Some days.
Or I'm just making some notes. Some days, yeah. Anyway, I'll better stay on track. I'll shut up and.
Well, no, it's good to have a new voice and some new input to these meetings.
I think the only issue we would have is that we've had, migration problems with DataWorks going to Magic, and then if we move to a new system, how do we address migration with Magic into, SharePoint or any other system we move with, and we still need to access the records irrespective of which system it was originally in. So I think that's going to be a real challenge for us.
Yes, and I mean, I like Magic, and I've been using it for many years now. I think they've dropped the ball a little bit on their support and their customer service, which is a bit of a shame. and it's terrible because we put these meetings up out on the web. So sorry, Magic, if you hear me say that. But I still think that the return on investment you get from Magic is really good. It's, you know, if you just want, we've been able to make it do everything, and anyone who's worked with me knows how big I am on compliance. And I'm not just about compliance from a legislative point of view. I just believe that the reason we have compliance is to make sure that we have really good record keeping systems. And, you know, I've been able to make Magic do everything that I need it to do to run a really efficient and compliant record keeping system. And when I look at the costs of Magic compared to other products, just return on investments there. And, you know, I know that, you know, Harley has Objective, and, you know, I talk a lot around the industry to people, and Objective has got one of the best reputations out there, and always has had a really good reputation that it can do anything. It's just a magic product. I've never worked with it, but this is what I hear. But I also believe it's a very, very expensive product. So you've got to say, you got to ask yourself when you're doing these things, do I want to spend this much more money for all this extra stuff, but will I actually use it? So that's what you got to think about, I think, when you're talking about changing horses mid-race. So
we've just finished a migration from our old legacy system DataWorks into Objective, and we had a Objective person, and he was great. We had meetings. He showed us how he's going to migrate them all in. It was wonderful, smooth sailing. We didn't have any issues. And
that's worth a lot to any client, to have a vendor who you can have that faith in. And I must admit that all of us here have been a little bit disappointed of late with Magic support and service. So yes, they need to pick up their game, I think.
One jumping in, Geraldine. My question, I suppose, is, and this is something I've faced here in Mount Isa, and that's why we've been investigating other EDMOSs, even though we've got Magic, it's the reputation that's been destroyed because the system per se may not have been configured correctly, or people didn't understand, or there's massive changeovers, etc., etc., etc. So many reasons. Like, for us, it's not so much as like, we've got the system and we know we could try and bring it back in again and fix it, but it's the reputation, especially in the higher levels of the organization, that's saying the system is bad, and no matter what we say, costs versus it's been configured, blah blah blah, it seems to be preferred to not be with them, if that makes sense, just because the system apparently failed, and therefore it's scum of the earth apparently. But I don't know personally how to deal with that challenge of being able to say, look, the system can work. Like, a lot of us in the organization who's been here a long time have said the system is so far along, and like you've said, you know, why change the system mid-race when we know that the race is a long one, we know that the system's not perfect, but we've got a whole enterprise system changing as well, and it's a bit of at what point do you make a decision on, do we go and change the record system again? And I think Sandra can join me on this one. It's but what guarantee do we even have that changing the system's not going to repeat the same disasters that happened last time? I'm not sure how to handle the situation or have that conversation internally, or even externally.
Yeah, you go. It was.
So I don't know whether we should change just because we want to change. We need to change. I mean, we've made Magic work for us so far. We've had a lot of issues with the implementation and with the migration, but we've managed to sort of sort through quite a lot of the migration issues. And with Karen, there are still a bit of issues still, lurking in the background. I'm just a bit concerned that if we did change, what are we gonna, we might be faced with the same or even major problems, That's my only sort of issue that I have, I don't want to go and have a new system when we don't really know what the system is going to do, good or bad,
All right, Sandra and Jerry, what you're saying just makes so much sense, because absolutely, Sandra, you can't guarantee that because you've had a bad experience with one vendor that moving away is going to solve your problem, because you could have a bad experience with another vendor. And I know that, Hayley, you said you had DataWorks. A lot of the Magic document sites around Queensland used to be DataWorks sites. And so this is going back 10, 12 years when Info Expert, as they were called back then, really came in and did a big push and sold their product to a lot of sites in Queensland. And it was totally based on people being disheartened with working with Technology One with their DataWorks product. And no one was getting the support, and everyone was really quite upset about it. About the service they were getting, and it was a really, really quick win for Info Expert to come in and say, here's another product, and we'll give you good service. So that is, and what you're saying, Jerry, is just such a good lesson for every vendor to be aware of, that customer service is more important than your product, than the capabilities of your product. Because how do you convince your management team that this product is a good product? You're dealing with it with a company that's not giving you the customer service that you've come to expect. And I know that there's quite a lot of Magic document sites who are talking about going elsewhere because they're not getting their support. And I think that Magic have kind of dropped the ball a bit, because Info Expert was an EDRMS company, whereas Magic is a enterprise council product. So they're selling your whole property system, your finance system, your record keeping system all together. And they're really focusing. I don't see them around the records. I'm quite involved with RIMPA. I don't see anyone from Magic involved with the records industry. They're all going to local government conferences, and that's where they're making their sales. They want to sell a hold system. So I get the feeling that they really have dropped the ball a bit, not giving that customer service to the customers who don't have all their products, who just have the EDRMS. And that, wow, what a lesson. I mean, I'd love to do, I should do a presentation on this at RIMPA and just say, here's a real life situation, and what a full circle it's gone if now Magic Document are going to lose all these Queensland sites to other vendors for exactly the same reason they got those sites in the first place. That's my rant. Thank you.
Here. The irony.
It is, yeah.
So, John, you attending the RIMPA conference in June. If you can share some of your experiences with the SharePoint products and the presentations that they're doing at Canberra. I think FPoint is one of them that's presenting.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, be more than happy to do that. So yeah, anything I can gather, I'll bring back and I'll share directly with you, Sandra. And anyone else in the group is interested, I can make mention of it in our meetings and make sure I pass anything on to everyone. But I'll definitely send anything I get your way, so you can have a look at what the products are and what's out there.
Okay, shall we move on to our next point, or?
Sure.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for your input. We've been working on a project with our building and plumbing files, and we'd like to give you an overview on what we have achieved so far. Originally, in the heyday, we were asked to do this project as record management, and we crunched the numbers, and it was going to take one person 10 years to complete the scope of the job that was required. So many years later, we have now two wonderful project officers here with us today, and they've taken on the challenge. It's a 12-month challenge, and they're in the process of boxing these up to go to Grace. So I might hand it over to Hayley and Jessica, and they can fill you in on their experience so far within this project.
So basically, 6 months ago, we started this project. So it's only just building and plumbing. Just any finalised DAs we were boxing, we're listing, also going through what type of DA with the retention, because they're going off site now to be stored. Because what's happened is with all these years of finalised DAs, it takes up a lot of room. So basically it is going through file by file, taking out the finalised listing, sending them off site to be stored with Grace. It's a big job, massive job. I think we started, when we came on board, I think we started at 2016, and we did the most recent as well, but now we're down to 2007. So after 6 months, we're now to 2007. I think our biggest obstacle that we've come across is the fact, like this has obviously been discussed for quite a few years, but I think now that we're coming through, they've got such a reliability and a hold on the physical paper forms of their files. So I think now that we've come through and we're sort of actually taking them away, I think there was a little bit of a stage of panic where they needed to reprint a closed file. It wasn't right there. So I think once we sort of got that through, that the files are actually leaving site, I think they started to relax a bit, that the processes, they can actually get the file back. Grace will scan the whole box, and then that will come through, and then it will come in electronic form into Magic. But I think that's our biggest problem that we've had, is that transition from hard copy to electronic copy, where it's a big step for them. Coming from a private sector where every single document we dealt with is electronic, and coming into a sector where it is actually so physical, paper-based still, I think that's our biggest obstacle we've had to come to terms with, I think. But I think now, being here for 6 months, they are getting used to the fact that all the files are not going to be there. We're going to have to get requests in electronic form, which is good, because in that process, all these files are becoming electronic and going into Magic, where the retention, it's so much more manageable for the council as well to get these records electronic rather than paper form.
Yeah, our favourite word, disposal.
Yeah, yes.
Harley, does one box equate to one
File?
Yeah.
No, so roughly about 20 to 30 odd files will be in one box. So everything's barcoded. The box itself will have a barcode, then the individual file will have a barcode as well.
Yep. So if you request one file, they scan all
The whole
files.
box. Yep, and then we'll get all those files in, and then they get registered into Magic.
Is it expensive?
We don't have the running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't have that access to that at the.
So I just wonder who's paying for it, I guess, plumbing.
The plumbing and building department are paying. It's coming out of their budget.
Right. And what are they doing with new ones? So you get new applications?
Well, it's a work in progress.
The completed files are getting boxed straight away in the building and planning offices, and we'll just go and collect the full boxes when they have them available.
I think it's definitely a process that they'll need to look for in the future, rather than even just printing anything off. They've got an electronic copy through on their systems anyway, just to register that straight into Magic. I think that process and that should be looked at down the track. I think cost-wise, rather than printing, scanning and sending files off-site, I think cost-wise I'll have to look at go straight electronic into Magic.
Right, because this has always been a dream of mine, just to get them all in line and start working electronically. Because what they do is they get the file, and when they got a file, it's a hard copy file. If they've got something that is born hard copy, it just gets put in the file. It doesn't get scanned. And then what they tend to do is, because they want to see everything together, they print off anything electronic and throw that.
Yes.
So, you know, how brave do you have to be to say we're not doing that anymore?
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to come in and put the line in the sand and go, from this time, there is absolutely no printing. Everything that comes through as an electronic form will be registered straight into Magic. Anything sent through hard copy will be then put on a physical file. But then that at the end of that file, that could easily be scanned, because it's not a lot of places these days will deal with hard copy documentation. It is, a lot of it is electronic already. So then that cost could have been cut down. You could just easily scan probably maybe 20 pages of a hard copy that's come through, and you have a complete entire electronic copy of that file in Magic.
Yeah, I mean, not much is hard copy these days.
No.
Only a couple of % of a file. So it'd be great to get them to change their mindset to say, if you want to see everything together, give us your hard copy and we'll put it on your electronic file for you. Or they can scan it and put it in if they're themselves.
A lot of the times too, that's held it back is the technology and plumbers and the builders out in the field, you know, because we are quite rural in some areas, there's no service. So they need those hard copies to work on site when they're out on the field. But it's all a work in progress. We're just chipping away, and this is the start of some new beginnings and some new processes which we're implementing slowly but surely.
Just you know, putting the black hat, being the devil's advocate. Why do they need to have the hard copies on site?
Because they're out they could be in an area where there's they can't access the internet. It's quite rural. There's a lot of rural areas, a lot of black spots within our region.
Right.
So, you know, there's pluses and negatives with everything. And it's also having the staff that's willing to change, and there's a culture that needs to change.
Don't want to sound harsh, but I would just employ staff who are willing to change. That's just me.
But yeah, so it's been quite interesting.
But there is a technological problem still. That there are black spots.
So what will happen, the line that will be drawn in the sand eventually, if they do have to print off a DA file, that file will be classified as a copy, not an original. And then when it's completed, it'll go into the Grace confidential shredding bin. So all the information, the electronic version is live.
Right.
And it's just processed as per usual.
This is where like OneDrive is such a good solution for these things, because it's all out in the cloud with your OneDrive. But if you know you're going to be going out to a black spot area, say save a copy here, and that solves that problem. So hopefully we'll get there. I know that the people in Mount Isa have a lot of applications. I've seen their storeroom. They have a lot of applications they would like to eventually digitize and do that digital transformation on. So it's probably a bit of interest to you, Sandra, to hear what Gympie are doing.
Yeah, we've got our HR documents stored in Grace Council. To retrieve them when we do need them for RTI requests and so on, it is quite costly, you know, but we've managed that process. It's not always that we ask for them from storage, but it can be quite costly.
Very costly.
Yes, that's why you dispose of things when they're required and have met their intention.
Wow.
So how do you do that with HR document that's got a lifespan of 80 years, you know?
Sorry, I missed that, Sandra.
Yes, the retention and disposal for HR is 80 years, so 80. So how
No,
do you do that?
it's not 80 years. It's actually on their 80th birthday. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
that's still a long,
But-
time frame.
Yeah, but this is where you do your early source record hard copy destruction. So if you've got your processes in place and you digitize things and you can say, well, that's good enough. We don't need the hard copy anymore. Wow, what a great world to live in when you can do that.
One day.
Hayley from Bundaberg Regional Council here, sorry.
Yep.
Hi, Hayley.
That's what I have in place. I actually am doing the exact same thing that you guys have started, but I have one person scanning all day. They started in 2016, and we have done about 900 boxes, which is probably like, I'd say between 20 to, depending on the size, 20 to 50 permits in each box. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
I think that person deserves a bottle of champagne after all that's done.
Yes. Yeah.
So like I said earlier, when we looked at scope, they wanted us to do the job internally. It was going to take one person at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And we're quite a small team, so it wasn't viable for us.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to get a whole new position created because it was in that much of a need. Because we are going digital. We've been digital since 2016. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Doing everything. I've done the HR files. I've done the building. I've done the licenses. Yeah, so I'm just making my way through everything and getting rid of it under the 2074 code.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's good when you have that support from upper management too.
Yeah, we had to push a lot, but yeah, we got there. Took a
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Can I ask how you managed to keep the spirit alive of the person who was scanning? Like, I've got somebody here who's been digitizing our sewage and drainage plan documents as well, and it's that sort of trying to keep her motivated when I know that there's lots of other jobs and things to be done, but I'm like, I need you to just focus and just keep pushing through. Like, how does one keep them positive, I suppose, or not wanting to leave?
I think it's the person themselves. They've got to be motivated and see the end result. That's how I look at it, anyway. And
I absolutely agree. Like, we take it. We were just talking before. We're only 12 months, and we're very personal with it. We've come into this project. And we are so motivated to actually see the end of it. But it does help the team, like the team here at Gympie. They're amazing, and they do keep the positivity here alive. So it's definitely, but you do have to manage that yourself.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, John.
No, yeah, you go.
Because the only other sort of challenge I have is I know there's somebody else in the organisation who would do an amazing job, and they do take the records personally in terms of property files and things, but it's getting that upper management who don't seem to be supportive of the criticality of having someone to just digitalise or do something, because as you would remember, John, that room is chockers and it's not getting any smaller.
Yeah.
But no one's going to, it's not just going to magically scan itself. But and the same thing with that fear of, if we take it offsite, will we ever see it again? And will it ever be scanned? Will we ever find where it's been scanned to, et cetera, et cetera? But it's just challenges. How does one communicate to say, look, all these other organizations have a digital transformation strategy, or, things in place. Why can't we? Anyway, that's my personal just frustration, head hitting walls.
I was just going to say, Jerry, that I sent out these links and say we're streaming a conference from REMPA. You should, if you're interested, should just get online and have a look at the program and pick out some of the things that you might be interested in, because they don't just do record stuff. They do a lot of leadership stuff. And at the last one, I think in Queensland, you can probably get it off their YouTube channel. They had a guy talking about this sort of stuff. And one of the things he said about keeping people motivated was that everyone has to understand what role they play in the organisation and why their role is important. If people are just doing a job and they don't understand why they're doing a job, it really demoralises them. But he was saying when people really understand that what they do is so important to other people in the organisation and the organisation as a whole, it just lifts their spirit and motivates them. So yeah, have a look at some of those leadership things that REMPA put out, because we're all struggling with the same thing with our teams, because we're often an undervalued area of the organisation, and people kind of takes a little bit for granted and think we're just mailroom staff. So have a look. REMPA's a great organisation and really gives you a lot of stuff like that to help you cope with those sort of issues. So yeah. Just wanted to add that in, give a little plug to REMPA.
Good tip, John. All right, has anybody got anything else they'd like to add to today's meeting? We're coming to a close.
I have another question.
Yep.
I think I spoke about this before, about digital destruction of digital records. Has anyone started that?
We do.
I haven't, but Christy would be the one to answer that, and she's not available today. If you'd like to pick her a message, she might be able to answer that for you, or give her a call. Yep. Personally, I can't. I'm not sure. I can't answer that question.
Okay then. Thank you.
Harley, you can give me a call if you want, because our clients, we do it with our clients. We're doing not just a lot of people do just disposal as project work, but we actually do it with our clients as day-to-day operational work. It's done, on a regular basis every month. We're doing hard copy and digital. So we destroy the hard copy at the same time as we destroy the digital, and we do the early source record destruction as well. So happy to chat to you about that. And
I might flick you an email, because we're at the bottom end of going to start to be deleting our digital stuff.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and that's the important stuff to get rid of. Yeah, because the paper, you get rid of that and you save a bit of space, but you're not reducing the risk to the organisation of having records that you should have got rid of a long time ago. And just to touch on something with you, Harley, a little bit of news for everyone. I'm actually leaving Caloundra, and we're actually moving to Bundaberg. So I'm actually going to be living in Bundaberg, hopefully by the 24th of this month. So I'll have to drop in and say g'day, Harley.
Yes, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we're all just a Teams meeting away.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. True. Okay, did Sandra, you've got your hand up. Did you want to say something, or would you like to say something?
I think I jumped in earlier on, but so I should have taken that out. But John, you do have a good conference in Canberra, and hopefully you can report back, to us on your highlights when we meet again next. So enjoy the trip.
Will do.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your input and attending today's meeting. And we will gather again in a time that John puts together for us, in like 3 months.
Yeah.
In 3 months' time, we'll send out another email. So
24th of June anyway.
If there's any, actually, I might point out, I had a few issues with emails bouncing back. So if I have missed anybody or you know anybody who should be added, can you just let me know, please? And I will add them to our contact list, if that's possible, please.
Will do.
Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the afternoon.
See ya.
Bye.